Was the window open?
Since you're safe, Arthur, with your double
Oh,
booster.
triple booster.
I did, thanks to you, you gave me the directions,
Yeah.
I got it.
Good.
Oh, yeah,
Uh-oh,
Okay.
yeah, but
I should've told you the last time I had it when we went over into Rock Creek Park.
Okay.
Oh, whoops. Oh, well.
Yeah, you gave me the perfect directions to get to Lamberton Drive.
that's where I just was. Why was I just at Lamberton Drive? Oh, to
Driver's
get
license.
my
Isn't
driver's
it?
license.
MBA Express.
I was just there
They
yesterday.
were so nice to me over there, I actually sent a note, of commendation to MBA about
Well, you know,
one particular,
Doing
employee.
everything scheduled online, and I get there and they say log in here, like through your phone, and you get your number, you didn't have to take one of those numbers from the reel and everything.
So it's super efficient.
Everything's efficient.
That's
There
one of
was-
the things, Arthur,
Yeah.
like so many other things that have been found out about since COVID started, that make life run a lot smoother.
Yeah.
Especially at MVA, they're not gonna change that, and that's a great system they
Yeah.
have.
I think
Co-host,
the
so that-
the staff are more pleasant because they're less stressed, because their customers are less stressed.
Mute folks.
There's a handful of people in the waiting room.
Yeah, it was a good experience. I was there a couple of months ago.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay,
Only did
it's,
exercise it.
yeah.
Sorry.
Okay, it's 7:37.
It's not that much.
Hey, before you officially start, I wanted to invite anyone who has any interest in the Capitol stones, which were sort of a dust-up in the news about 3 weeks ago. You know, the National Park Service and the architect of the Capitol have decided they need to be moved from Rock Creek Park to Fort Meade. I don't know if any of you remember this. Anyway, I have discovered the back door entrance, quickest way to go see the Capitol stones, which date back to the original construction of the Capitol.
Oh.
Stones or columns?
Stones. The
stones?
columns
Okay.
are.
The columns are in the Arboretum.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, these are the stones.
Stones.
Some is sort of a rough and tumble pile, some are neatly stacked,
Yeah.
but there's a lot of them.
Worth going there, I went over with Lynn, worth seeing.
Great.
Alright.
All right, guys.
Okay, let's
Okay.
call this meeting.
Calling this meeting to order at 7:31 on Thursday, September 22nd. And we'll start off with our friend Doug for the building report.
I'm gonna ask him to unmute, so just give me just a second.
Are all the residents logged in?
Yeah, all the ones that were in the waiting room are logged in, so.
Can we get something up there?
Yeah, I will, just give me 1 second.
Okay.
Okay. You can, I'm just gonna ask, I thought I'd ask Doug to unmute, but we'll do that a second.
That's another good thing, Susan and Arthur, that, you know, poor Doug used to come up
Okay,
here
he's
and wait.
unmuted.
Yeah,
Okay.
okay.
Okay, there we
Okay,
go.
Doug, it's all yours.
Whoa.
I'm good.
Good evening. At the 3506 Bradley Lane, the village issued a building permit on December 9th of 2021. Work is progressing, and we will be contacting the contractor about the need for extending that permit because it will expire in December. At 3419 Cummings Lane, staff has had discussions with the applicant's engineer about removing the existing house and constructing 2 new houses. The property is now 2 lots recorded in 1919. Staff has sent some basic comments to the engineer, and we haven't heard back yet. At 151 Quincy Street, the applicant submitted this is an update from what's on your handout. The applicant submitted a building permit application to the village to remove the existing house and build a new house. The staff has reviewed the plans, submitted comments to the applicant, and we're waiting for the county to approve their building permit. At 7200 Summit Avenue, the village issued a variance a while back, and we issued a building permit on April 26th, and work has begun on that project just beginning this month. And at 3404 Turner Street, the village issued a building permit on November 19, 2021. We're trying to get hold of the applicant to see if they need an extension on that, and the county's building permit application is still open. So I'll have more information on that next month. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Doug.
Thank you.
And then just before we go to residents' comments, this being Niles' last official council meeting as village manager, I just wanted to again express on behalf of the whole council, and we did this in the email out to the village, how much we appreciated all his hard work, tireless work, always a smile on his face, no matter what kind of badgering he encountered. And we will miss him sorely and wish him well in Poolsville. But just wanted to thank you officially here in this setting. Unfortunately, we don't have a critical mass of residents online or here, but we appreciate those that did come. And we're gonna announce, hopefully tomorrow, the date and time of a farewell get-together where we hope residents can come join us next week, late afternoon, early evening sometime, just to bid Niles farewell. I don't know if you wanna add anything, but just wanted to say this at the outset.
I would like to add that not only have we been the beneficiaries of all of your goodwill and guidance, but you have really given us so much expertise with regard to Open Meetings Act and procedural issues, and I think we've all benefited. The community as a whole has benefited greatly from your presence, and we wish you were staying, but we understand that proximity sometimes rules.
Yes.
So.
Yeah, Niles, I just would like to say how invaluable you've been. And one thing I'd like to emphasize to the residents, you know, you started during, you know, this world event, this nation's event, which is keeping me home tonight, the coronavirus. You know, you really rose to the task, and you were always on site almost every day when most of us in this community could work remotely, and I really appreciate that. You were always responding to every resident's needs, and you put in extra hours as a Zoom administrator, and so I'm really happy for your next venture to Poolsville. I think it's a really nice work-life balance for your family, and I remember 270 traffic. I used to live in Germantown, and it's not fun. So when Niles would put in a long day, then he'd go back down 270, and it's just as bad north or south. So, so we're gonna miss you, and I really appreciate you. We all do, and you know, best of luck.
Yay.
And I think Jeff from another continent is looking to hopefully add a few comments, and then we'll go to the residents. I'm asking you to unmute.
Niles, I'll make it short, but there are very few folks aside from my wife and family that I'll stay up in ungodly hours to participate on a video call where I am, and I just wanted to do that and express, as everyone else has done, you've been just so magnificent in every possible way. We'll miss you, and as you know, I'll miss you just as I'm walking out the house and you're taking your walks and our talks and everything else you've done to support the community. And we know you're not far, so hopefully we'll see you on the way up to the spring and other fall festivals. And with that, I'll turn it back over. But again,
Jeff,
thank
what
you so
time?
much.
What time is it where you are?
Right now it is 2:37. But the jet lag is there, so I'll probably start fading soon. So I can't promise I'll stay on the whole meeting, but I'll listen in for a little bit.
Okay,
All
thank
right.
you.
Thank you, Jeff. And this shows you how long it's been since our last council meeting. I jumped over our most important participant, Dr. Weatherman. Please provide us with some good news. Today seemed the first day of fall, and it did seem fall-like, especially at my kid's soccer game this afternoon.
Right on cue, if you look at the clock, it's still summertime.
Oh, it is?
Until
Okay.
a few minutes after 9 o'clock.
Got
The
it.
cold front went through, we had the showers, and then the sunshine. It's gotten windy, it's gonna stay windy tonight and be breezy tomorrow. Temperatures tomorrow will struggle to get out of the 60s. And the weekend, at least Saturday, looks good right now. There could be some showers Sunday, but I think you can finally say goodbye to the 90s and the humidity.
Excellent.
Late next week, we could be talking about a tropical storm here, so stay tuned for that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
The cool weather might help with the burnt ramen and the microwave smell in our house, so we have all the windows open and hopefully it'll
Paul,
smell a
I'd
little
like to say
better.
something here, right, Paul? You
Oh, yeah, so Keith asked me on behalf of the Community Engagement Committee to say a couple of words. First of all, to Niles, and I think as Susan put it so well, I think you've brought a level of professionalism and discipline, as well as your sort of effervescent personality, and always being there, and always being very flexible, and always being the man on the go as far as supporting all our events is concerned. So that's been fantastic, Niles. Thank you very much. Is it appropriate for me to talk about other communities?
No, let's
we-
go
we
to
can do
resident
that when
comments and
they-
then we'll go to the committee report. Perfect,
Okay.
thank you very much for
Thanks,
your
Paul.
kind
Thanks.
comments. So let's see if there are resident comments, if you'd like to raise your hands electronically or in person here or online. Lynn?
I'd just like to make a comment about Niles. He's a fairly good sized guy, so I'm sure he wears fairly good sized shoes. But I think the shoes he needs to fill are much larger, and it'll be a challenge to have someone here with his excellence and good spirit and the knowledge and experience that he brought. I just hope we have someone that gets somewhere close to the good that he brought to us. Thank you for your service, and I wish you the best in the future.
Thank you, Lynn.
Thank you.
There's somebody raised their
Marty.
hand.
Yep. I'm asking you to unmute, so. There we go. Oh,
There we go.
Yeah.
Do it again. You do it?
I'm gonna do it. You should get a thing, there we go.
There we go.
Okay, thanks, Niles. And Niles, I just want to echo what everyone else has said too. I think you've just been terrific. And I appreciate your patience and your integrity and your willingness to respond openly and honestly to all kinds of questions and situations. And your helpfulness has just been extraordinary. And I just think the world of you, and I love your little toddler, Louisa, too. And I hope we will keep in touch because you have really been an incredible asset to the community in many, many ways, and a friend to so many of us. And just I thank you not just for what you did, which was an incredible amount, but for the way you did it as well, which matters just as much. And wish you all success in the future. If there's ever anything I can do to help you, don't hesitate to holler. A couple of items for the council. I'm really happy, and thank you, Niles, to hear the report that indeed the long-awaited new directory will be out soon. And thank you for trying to finish that up before you leave, Niles. I think that's really important. I also wanted to ask about the status of the traffic improvements, namely the speed humps, which I understand have been put in on the 3 streets. But Andrew, you'll recall that we also talked about doing some traffic slowing on Turner, which was not in the traffic engineer's original set. And I'd like to put that back kind of front and center on the agenda, because I keep hearing from people on Turner that, you know, folks are speeding to and from the park, and it's a tight street and bad visibility. And so so Andrew, I don't know if you want to comment on that, and then I'll go to one more thing.
Yeah, thanks for raising that, Marty. I think we talked about a second phase in general, not just for Turner, but for streets that didn't benefit, I think, from potentially life-saving implementation of these speed humps. So that's something that's in the works. I don't know if we have timing on that, but I know that we've been working on that.
Certainly. So, I mean, we can, basically at this point, and I heard from other residents about other streets as well this week, it's sort of, right now it's been about implementing what's already been worked out and planned out. I think for whatever comes next is sort of setting up, you know, always starting with data and having the data, so speed studies for Turner and other streets, potentially Raymond or Bradley, you know, ones that haven't had speed studies before, not in a long time. So that's sort of the next phase of that data collection point. So right now it's sort of doing what has already been approved and then planning out what would be next. And so we'll set that up in a way that people can understand.
Yeah, as you know, Marty, this has been something that I care about deeply, and I think other members of the council do too, so we're not gonna drop this. We just wanna get this first phase implemented, and then we'll transition to the next.
Hey, thank you for moving on that, you know, with all due diligence and speed. One final, just a sort of a procedural point. I would really like to ask the council to be careful over the next month or two, and to instruct the new staff, when I hope we have them soon, to provide the meeting packet information more in advance of the meetings. I mean, it's a courtesy, it's also helpful. I'm sure I'm not the only person who actually looks at the packets. But today, you know, it was in the announcement, you could go to the link to the packet at 6 o'clock for a 7:30 meeting, and that's pretty short notice. So if you would just put a note somewhere, maybe Katie, this is your bailiwick as communications specialist, but it's really nice to have the packet, you know, in advance, 2 or 3 days in advance. It really helps. And, you know, if people want to look at the finances or anything else about any particular projects, you know, being able to read the proposal more than an hour before the meeting is just helpful. It's just a good practice. So, if you would.
Yeah, and I know, look, Niles is totally checked out, so we can't, we're
There's no
just not
like
expecting
Niles
much.
implied here
He's
whatsoever.
1 foot out
Such a short
in
term.
Poolsville. No, but in all seriousness, he's been flying solo here. He's not had the help of an assistant manager, so point taken, we understand, but I also know that Niles gets pulled in a million directions, so we will work on that, but appreciate your concern, Marty.
And I understand it. I mean, we were working on various things as late as today for the packet. to
As
try
late,
to make
as late
sure-
as 4 p.m.
Yeah, to try to make sure that we had all the up-to-date information from what we're doing. So I appreciate that, but you know, we will make sure that gets noted and worked out. So
Yeah, put
I
it in
appreciate
your
it.
notes for your successor to try to do that more in advance, because I think you did a good job of it, Niles. Generally,
Thank
you
you.
have had the packets available more than, you know, a day or two in
Yeah.
advance, and that has been really helpful. So this is praise, not criticism. And I just hope you'll put a note somewhere on the to-do list for your successor to try to help with the council get that packet out sooner. And I appreciate the helpfulness of that.
Great. Thank you, Marty. Two very good issues you raised. Thanks a lot.
Okay, dude.
Doug and Hiromi.
Yep. So I asked them to unmute. Yep.
Hi, thank you. We're Doug and Hiromi Grove from on Cummings Lane, and just wanted to join to wish Niles well and to thank you, Niles, for your service and for being so responsive to our questions over the years. So thank you very much, and thanks very much to all of you on the call for your service to the village. Very much appreciated. Thank you.
Great.
Thank you
so much. Thank you. Okay. Annual survey.
Survey.
Hey, Andrew,
Oh, sorry. Oh, your
So-
hand was raised.
just so that the rest of, for those online, there are those here who also, residents who appreciate your service, Niles. Thank you for coming in. And in government, we have the continuity of operations, and I know that was something that was a big focus for you here. And I am thankful that the next person will come in and there will be a guide and
Yes.
a history for that person to be able to pick up and run with. So thank you very much.
Yeah.
I was also gonna say, it's not on the agenda, but
I
committee
know.
reports.
I just,
Yeah,
I
just
plugged it. I
realized-
plugged it into
Yeah.
mine, and it's going to come right after we do the survey. If you don't
Yeah.
mind.
Okay.
Is that
Yeah.
okay?
That's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. No, I just I noted that, and it's right here. I wrote committee report.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
Thank you, Mr. Thank you.
Mhm.
Okay. Chapeau.
Okay, survey. When we first started the survey, I can't remember how many years ago, 5 or 6, 7 years ago.
7.
I had asked a friend of mine who had been the associate director of the census for 10 years, who was in charge of all the personal and household censuses, to sit with us and go over some of the kind of fundamentals of how you ask questions. And he kind of reviewed our materials and gave advice. I think over the years we kind of deviated from some of that, and so this year I try to go back to it. And so most of all the questions, I think, essentially follow the same format. They ask the same kind of questions. I ask after every question for open comments, where I stress that we particularly value people's comments, rather than just you know, a yes or no, saying why they do it. We really go over that, so that's in every question. One other change is that we're asking for every resident, not every household, to do it. I never understood why it was confined to households rather than residents. And what I tended to see is that it created a lot of divisiveness within households as to whose opinion was going to be out there, because not everybody in the same house had the same view. So, unless somebody can convince me that households is better than residents, so I suggest we leave it in. Anyway, I resubmitted this to my friend to say, okay, how does it look? And he says, looks great. So, I suggest that we put it up for a dry run among council members or anyone else who lives in their household for them to do, just to check it out. How does it read? How long does it take? And get that up there going, and then we be ready for prime time. I actually got some good suggestions from Susan on
Don't sound
some
so
amendments
surprised.
that I've incorporated. What's that?
Don't sound so surprised.
Yeah. For once.
I know, finally.
I'm just curious, I know our household, I'm the only one that follows the village business, but are most households, do they have multiple
Yeah,
members of
they-
the
yeah,
family who
that-
all get the?
Yeah, most
okay,
residents,
Well, in the past, it's just been per household, is what,
That's
is the
right.
point.
Right,
So
but
now,
I'm just wondering, like, I'm the only one on the village email or anything, and
Yeah.
I'm just
Yeah.
wondering if
So-
that's such
so-
a norm, or if, how many people?
the question is, as we learned during COVID, a lot of adult children moved back in with their parents, so their households here with 4 or 5 voting adults.
Yeah.
Right.
So in that case, that could be 4 or 5 responses. Tiffany, you seem aggravated in the back.
No, I just, for the history lesson,
Yeah.
you know, the council, you know, the reason, and this was discussed when your friend came in, as to why it was one response per household, was so that we didn't have households canceling each other out. You know, if it's a question of additional survey, right, or additional service, the question was, would your household want X additional service? And we needed an answer for the household.
Yeah.
so now we're
So-
asking, do you want the service? And so,
Well, I guess those are different
he might,
questions,
she
right?
might not.
I mean, but
Or
that
he might,
gets
he might not.
complicated then. Do you want more recycling? The husband says yes, the wife says no, or the partner says no. I mean, it's,
We can handle it.
What do we as you as the council do? Is that actually helpful information?
Yeah, of course,
Yeah.
yeah, we
Or not? That's why.
we
Should
add them
Should be
all
an
up.
asterisk, talk amongst yourselves before answering certain questions.
That is why, Arthur,
Yeah.
and that was
Okay.
from your
Okay,
your
I
friend when
didn't,
he came in.
it didn't make sense to me at the time, and still doesn't, but, okay.
Well,
I accept your history.
Let's think about that, but okay, good valid point.
Okay, so that's it. The other thing, the other major thing is that I separated into 2 sections, one based on current operations and services, and the other on, possible extensions of the services. So I said, now we want to hear about your possible future services and activities. So, it makes a clear distinction.
Okay.
Okay, that's it.
Well, we'll take a look, and we'll also time it, I guess, if that's one question, how
So
long it
could we
takes.
get it up and out for,
For preliminary review, I don't think
Preliminary review.
would take very long.
Yeah.
Probably, early next week.
could,
and then
how,
you guys
we
can
could
figure
take
out.
this document,
Oh, I mean, most of these questions are the same as last year's, so all it is copying over last year's and then going through and
well,
making the
I
changes.
reworded, don't do
Yeah,
that,
no.
start from scratch.
Well, it's
Right.
not for that, it's not
Right.
the actual written text. What I mean is that actually like producing the questions,
format or
the
the-
format
yeah.
of the thing, it's not worth redoing it.
Oh,
What it
okay,
is worth
okay.
is utilizing what's in Constant Contact and then just changing
Oh,
it,
oh,
right?
okay, right.
Right, exactly.
Okay, okay,
Yeah,
right.
because it's, so we're not building it from scratch, we're
Right,
just
okay.
changing it,
Got
so.
it, got it, okay.
Okay, so Marty has a comment to make, on this subject?
I think-
Unmute yourself.
Is her hand is still up?
Yeah.
I think it's
Hi,
good.
thank you. Yes, Arthur, nice job. Nice work there. I like the fact that you put comment blocks in. I hope that they'll be long enough for people to write comments. Are you leaving enough space? Past surveys sometimes only allowed like 250 characters, so there really wasn't room for comments. So I guess, Niles, that's a formatting issue,
Mhm.
to make sure that people can actually write a more detailed suggestion in the comments, and Arthur, great to put it in there. I did want to suggest that perhaps you might want to add a question about finances. That people, some people think they don't have enough information about the village finances. Some people think the village has millions of dollars in reserves that we don't have. And some people think that we, anyway, there seemed to be some confusion in the neighborhood about finances. And so the question about, do you feel like financial information for the village is readily available, might be, do you know where to find financial information about the village? I don't know how you want to word it, but something about that to respond to that concern that there's confusion about what our finances look like.
Well,
Arthur, your summary reports at each council meeting are great. They're very short, but they're not detailed about like what expenditures are.
Do we have a question about how easy do you find the website to navigate?
Yeah,
and stuff
that's,
like that?
yeah,
Okay.
that's there.
All right,
Yeah,
I
the
thought-
question is about whether it's user friendly, but it's not about the finances. So just a thought there,
Okay,
Okay,
good.
okay, to consider.
thank you.
And on the services, I think it was really terrific that you put in the thing about the snow shoveling for the sidewalks. Thank you for that. That you put in the pilot project for the Chevy Chase home. I think it might be useful on that question to add a little bit of context. I think that the data, our census demographic data shows that 25%, 30% of us are over 65 or whatever the number was. To add a short sentence there, since we have, a significant percentage of older residents or residents who might need assistance, maybe because younger residents might be disabled as well. But to put a one sentence comment in there, give it a little context as to why the council is considering doing this, because there are many people who need assistance, not just the elderly. And so again, just one thing. And I think that it was well done in general. I think it's going to be helpful. I think this is a better format than last year's. And so I'm going to thank you in general. And I may get back to you with a few other wording things. But basically, Arthur, I thought it was really well done. And just leave enough space for people to fill in the comments now that you've asked for them. So thank you.
Okay, thank
Thanks,
you.
Marty.
We actually started.
Oh,
Nope.
sorry.
Anyone else?
Jeff?
Thanks. I'll make it short. Arthur, as always, thanks for you're just taking the lead on all things. And so I just had a quick question. Actually, as a co-liaison to the election committee, I know the election questions are similar, and we've had very high responses in terms of the feedback on was the election conducted it was conducted entirely by mail, the process of voting easy. And again, the questions are pretty much the same over the last couple of years. I want to, in terms of decision making, I'm sure it may come up this year in terms of will it remain all mail-in or perhaps other methods. And I'm wondering, is there anything here that you feel could help inform the committee about that as a choice going forward? Would residents prefer it to be entirely by mail or some form like we had last year by mail and having a drop-off or something? Just to add that extra information for the committee and the council for their decision making.
Good, thank you, good.
Great, thank you, Jeff. Tiffany, did you want to say something?
Sure. So, Arthur, the survey, one per resident, I think for the council, what's the goal of the survey? And then that dictates how you structure who responds. The composting question, we've had a pool for several years now, and in the same vein as context matters, maybe adding context about the pool and the number of participants would be helpful for people.
What do you mean?
The pool of people who already participate.
Okay.
How many
Which
households?
drops the
Yes.
cost per household.
Yeah.
Actually, the larger the pool, the
Yeah.
less per household.
And
So
yeah,
how do we
we'll just reach out to Compass Crew. There's a
Yeah.
couple
Right.
people who've added since last year, since we got the
yeah,
data.
so
I'll
we can just plug
update
that in and say
Mhm.
currently X amount of households are taking
Are taking part.
right,
Yes.
taking part.
We've had a pool for Y number of years, X,
Yeah. Yeah,
A pool drives down the per household, but before the village says, we're gonna do this for every household, then
Yeah.
Right.
two people actually
Right.
want. So started in 2015, it's just again history, this is the 7th year, that it will be a survey. For snow shoveling, I think there is a direct connection to public safety. And I would say if you're going to offer the way the question is structured right now, maybe half, maybe it would cost. It doesn't say annually in it right now. I would encourage you guys just to say, this is what it would cost to shovel all of the sidewalks in the village.
Okay.
If you're doing it for public safety, you're doing it for
okay.
public safety.
Yeah.
For question about aging in place, again, there was a note earlier about context, which I'm all about. I think, you know, there's currently an undersubscribed scholarship grant program at Chevy Chase at Home. I think I still have questions about the village creating this. I don't know, again with our current policy, whether that's actually possible. And I would say I think it's important for residents to hear and see, you know, we do for one nonprofit, we're gonna have to do for more.
No, you don't.
And that's,
We don't have to argue this now, but you don't.
so again, just, I think context matters. And
Well,
then there was a question about community engagement. There is some context there about the budget and expenses, but it's a little bit of a confusing transition between the total budget and then things were shut off for COVID. Do you want more activities? Instead of it being like, we've gone back to hosting these things, this is what, you know, 5 events a year or whatever would cost.
Yeah.
Do you want more? It's just a little.
I must say on that, totally unrelated but kind of related, I ran into a Section 3 event 3 weeks ago. It was pretty cool.
Rocket.
I mean, they had like,
We don't wanna know.
What?
I mean, catering and I mean, it seemed pretty neat. We can maybe reach out to them and find out what they did and how much they spent. Cause it was not a Halloween thing, it wasn't, you know, it was just doing an event for the community.
Just more pop-up events.
Right,
Something
and
that
that-
we've talked about.
And that is something, that we've talked about before. One suggestion I know, Phil Hurst, who's the third of the Community Engagement Committee members have suggested previously, and we talked about this a little bit before, of doing things like what Section 3 does, which is a food truck event or.
Yeah, this seemed like an end of summer, beginning of school. They had like a choo-choo train on wheels that was cruising around with kids, and anyway, we'll find out what it is, because it'd be fun. I think the budget's there to do fun events like that. So we'll discuss it. But Tiffany.
And just the election. I'm going to echo again Jeff's the election question and the celebration on the sidewalk. You know, that was a very missed, a very beloved event. And it has been a missed event, so however the election question is phrased, I do think having that event did bring people together for a shared purpose.
Yeah, and it seemed probably one of the better attended in the past, kind of akin to Halloween, you know, in terms of size.
Is there a pencil?
Okay, anything else on the survey? Lynn?
I'm sorry, Andrew, it's Jeff. I wasn't sure, Arthur, with as Tiffany mentioned, so with the election question, is there gonna be, Arthur, you're gonna kind of think about that and see if there might be something we add or tweak? Was that kind of the next step?
Right.
Okay, not to give you homework, I mean, I'm, obviously we're happy to help you, but just wanted to see.
Right, got it.
Thanks.
Lynn?
On the survey, is there a decision whether it's household or resident?
Resident.
I think the council will figure this one out. We know where
So
Arthur's coming from, we know where Tiffany's coming from.
It's still up in the air.
Yeah.
Well, then it would seem that a more valid thing would be a response from over 1,000 people versus a response from maybe 330.
Well, again, point taken, but Tiffany makes that other point that you could cancel out, though I think in many ways, I think on some of the fundamentals.
They sum it up,
Well, no, that's right, but I think some of the fundamentals, I can't imagine that a household would disagree on whether they want more or less recycling, like.
Ask Susan.
Oh, they do.
I was gonna say you could ask about composting and you might see people canceling each other out.
Composting. Well, I think my wife gets grossed out by whatever insect life is created in some of those bins when she opens it up, but you know, that's part of the process. No, I'm the one who's
having men in your life.
Yeah, right. Okay. Okay, so let's move on to committee reports, and we can, let's start with the community engagement, since we were talking so much about.
Okay. Let's go. Okay.
Oh.
We talked about, the location of some of these other events in the other jurisdictions, but, we've got it really over everybody, because we've got the park, and, one year we had pony rides there. And we can do all kinds of good stuff down there, so you might want to keep that in mind. Anyway, one of the things that was so successful there was the movie in the park, as Niles will attest, and anybody else that was there. And we're gonna continue to do that every year, but we've got the Halloween parade coming up now, and we're gonna be planning for that. Paul and myself and Phil. Yeah. I should have called him to be here tonight, because I still haven't met him face to face. But I'm excited about that, Paul.
Yeah, well, yeah, I'll just echo what Keith said. We had a successful, we're happy to have Phil on the committee. Keith and I are holdovers from last year. Phil is a new resident. We're glad to have his energy and expertise. We had a successful movie in the park. We're looking forward to the Halloween party. But I take the chairman's point earlier on. I mean, I practically live in Section 3 because I go to that bloody dog park twice a day, and they have a phenomenal set of events. Keith's right, we have a great asset in the dead end in the park there. I thought Section 3 had 4,000 people living in it because of the quality of events that they have. They have 300 households. They have 300. They're half the size that we are. So we could be doing, I think, a lot more in terms of putting events together to connect our community. We've had some great events in the past. Tiffany mentioned the election event that we have. We have such great physical assets here between the market and the park. We can definitely leverage it.
Could I add something at this point, since you mentioned the park several times? I got a call from Monty Boland about the park.
Yeah.
And we talked about the possibility, as we're doing with storm drains, of having our federal money that we receive with the county to upgrade the park. Is that within the possibility of what Treasury has said?
So on the broad scale, yes, in the sense that it is a legitimate government expense. And since the way that we apply for the federal funds allows for basically us to use it for any regular government, service, basically, which is, in the confusion that is, the Treasury Department is how they ultimately allow us to use the money.
Right, so a playgrounds, a public playground fits in with that.
Right.
Okay.
I think I think there's more questions about whether the county, and I mean, Monty and I have actually talked about this before, what the county's priorities are in terms of parks.
Well, he said he talked to the parks director, who said, we don't have the budget, but if you could find money for us for that park, they could talk about it.
So then the question, of course, is for residents, this is money for VMA. Why are we propping up the county at the same time? That's where it's kind of difficult. This is a park that our residents take advantage of.
That's right.
And enjoy. So it's a conversation to be had.
Right,
but I've talked to Monty about this as well.
Okay.
So we've got a
I
K9.
would raise it as first to check the feasibility, the legal feasibility of it. Okay. Good. So it's on the.
Can I just say something?
Yeah, go ahead, Katie.
Oh, I'm sorry. I also meant at the top of the hour when we were giving well-deserved accolades to Niles, I meant to thank the Community Engagement Committee for an awesome movie night, and to point out that Keith Allen was mowing the grass of the whole park before it. Our chair picked up some dog poop right before the movie started. I think almost all the council members were there. It was a terrific event. And I'm going to tell you something about Section 3. They're going down. There is no reason that the Village of Martin's Edition should not be having the best parties. I want to hear about Section 3, Section 5. We're the best, and we'll show them. And by the way, Rollingwood was super jealous of our Fun Flicks, and they're planning their own movie night. So they're copying us, and so will the others. So I'm just going to say that.
Just saying. Okay.
Hey, thanks Katie to you and
Katie.
Steve.
Well said, Katie.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Keith.
Yeah, it was awesome, and Keith, thanks for the weather, because it was like hardly any mosquitoes or gnats or anything. It was perfect, so much appreciated. There were no flies around that coop I picked up. I mean, it was like, it was brilliant.
He does it all.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, let's move on to Lori for ethics.
Okay, so according to tonight's agenda, you guys are done by 8:46, so I'm going to be very brief. We had our first meeting on Monday night, and consistent with the recent change to the village code, the shares committee is composed of 3 members, each who will serve between 1 and 2 years, so that we are initiating the staggered terms. Our first priority is to schedule training for the village volunteers, which we hope to accomplish during the month of October. And as Susan may have mentioned to her fellow council members, this year we'd also like to offer ethics training to the village council, but suggest maybe that we wait until the new village staff, and sorry now.
I was there for every
You
meeting
were
where
there,
it was
of course,
discussed.
so you
So
kind of
I
went
think
through
I
it,
went
that's
through
true,
it.
you went through the development of it. So, but following up, we had a suggestion at our meeting that I wanted to follow up on tonight, and that was to expand the ethics ordinance to cover all village volunteers, as was originally intended. The committee agreed that I would seek advice from the council, kind of like what we do with staggered terms, before discussing it in greater detail and coming back to the council with the recommendation. But one point I really want to point out is that currently there's a conflict. If you read the village code and the village policies, the policy provides that all village volunteers sign the oath of office and the conflict of interest form, whereas the code only enforces those documents for the statutory committees, the village management, and the council. So that, oh, right, and the supervisor. Well, that's
It's
not
statutory. I mean, it's
yeah,
not quite a
statutory,
committee, but it
yeah,
is
okay,
statutory.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So, thanks. Yeah, that wasn't
Yeah.
the primary impetus behind the suggestion, but I'd love to hear council feedback.
What I don't recall the specific wording, but as I think back, wouldn't it only require removing one word?
It requires, in fact, I have it with me tonight. It just
Yeah.
requires changing the paragraph to resemble the resolution that's passed. Right
Yeah.
now, there's 2 different paragraphs. One of them has, the resolution has all of the committees. We didn't have task force when the resolutions were replaced in 2019, approved in 2019, but I guess we should add task
Well,
force.
no, I would just say a committee is a committee. The designation task force comes and goes. They're all committees. They're
Okay.
all
I think
appointed
that's-
committees.
yeah.
No.
Some permanent, some temporary.
Yeah.
There's a
yeah.
legal difference between a task force and a committee.
I think the point is
In
just that
definition.
you're a volunteer and you're taking an oath.
Right.
And,
Yeah.
and even if you think about something as harmless as a community engagement committee, where you think like, what could possibly happen? Well, you could have a relative who's in the party favor business
Yeah.
and try and direct business there. Or if you're on a task force, for our pedestrian safety, you have a buddy who's in the construction business
Right.
and somehow wins an RFP. So I think it makes sense, if you're volunteering and you're taking an oath, that it should cover everyone. So I'm happy to continue this conversation with
Okay.
I think Jeff is off now,
Yeah,
so.
and we could get Ron to just come up with.
Yeah, for Ron to take a look
Come
at.
up with a draft.
Okay.
And send it back to the.
And send it back to the ethics
committee.
Yeah.
And council.
Okay.
I think that would be great. Do you need to vote on it, or?
I
Oh,
don't.
yeah.
A vote?
Oh,
to-
no,
No,
now,
no,
no,
right.
no,
Direct
no,
it.
no.
If you just
No, you're
say
just
to direct.
directing them.
Yes.
You're
Just,
directing
yeah,
us
direct
to.
the
Yeah,
village attorney.
I don't mean to change the
Yeah.
code, I mean to
Okay.
direct us to do it, so
Mhm.
we're
All
good,
right.
we're good to go on that.
Anything else on?
Yeah, I just wanna say our next meeting's December 5th, so I hope that we'll have some of you there.
Great, thank you, Lori. And as Niles and I just discussed, election is not giving an update. Their first meeting is next week.
Yeah.
Is it confirmed for Wednesday, you said?
That is, yeah, so that is the latest I had with people's availability was that will be Wednesday.
Okay.
And
So
it
there'll
will
be a
be,
notice going on
yeah,
that.
and it will be, here, but obviously Zoom access for those who need it, so.
Okay, great. All right, so let's go to financial matters, treasurer's report.
Financial matters. Our spending is going about as predicted, as projected. We don't have any money in yet because that comes over the next several months, but that's expected. We expect everything to be going along smoothly. That's it.
That's great.
Nothing outstanding.
Best report ever.
Yeah.
Manager's report.
Okay, so a couple of things. As Marty mentioned, we have the directory. It's being sent to the printer tomorrow. As I said in my report, if anybody has last-minute things, if you change your phone number in the last 2 weeks, let me know. We've installed the new buzzer system for the door down there. You might notice there's a little black box next to the door that actually includes a camera, which in the academy they can see. In the Chevy Chase Arts Academy, they can see who's at the door. That's primarily for after hours. So like days like today, like when we have a scheduled meeting, we'll not put on the buzzer so residents can have access to a meeting. But in regular nights where there isn't an event in the village office, you'll have to be buzzed in next door, for next door. So it's primarily for the Arts Academy, but just letting people know that. Obviously, since we last met, we installed the speed bumps on Cummings and Shepherd and Summit. And then we have one left on Cummings because of some car issues with people's cars. And then we're getting a final check for the speed bump on Thornapple, which just because of the grade of the street, we want to double check before we place it, where we exactly place it. All new signage will go up. That will probably be next week for all of the speed bumps in the village. So both the new ones and the old ones will get new signs that will be a little bit easier to tell that it's a bump, and it will have a little image of a bump, and it's sort of a little bit easier to stand out, and it meets more of the latest traffic standards. And there'll be other new signs coming. We're going to sort of build up the signage so that it's clearer on these things. The widening of the sidewalk here on Brookville Road. So I've been still discussing that with the state, and they seem to be pretty on board with it. Again, we don't have final approval yet from the state. They want a few more things. However, the work that WSSC is doing has come into some snags, actually not in the village, in Section 5 and in Section 3. And so they are working on that.
That's because all their parties disturbed them.
And so it's
Tearing it up.
so what it seems like WSSC and their contractor AMT is planning is to finish all the stuff north of it, then shut down for the winter, then start back up next March. So instead of us going forward and rebuilding the sidewalk, then having them tear it out and build it again, my recommendation and the recommendation I gave to the council is simply to wait until March and then do it when they are actually tearing up and making connections.
But we seem to have so much money. Why not do it twice?
Do it twice?
Yeah.
Because there are some things as financial prudence.
Let me just add to this. When people want to know, why does it take so long to do anything? You're dealing with the State Highway Administration and putting in the new water pipes and the asphalt plant shut down over the winter.
Yeah.
And each of these things back up on each other. And so when you first brought this up, we were talking about putting them in last March.
Yeah.
And now we're talking about a year later, if we're lucky.
Yeah. And so my goal before I leave is to have a couple more conversations with the state and AMT, but regardless, it'll be set up so that that project can go forward when it is practicable.
Okay.
All right. And then lastly, I'd say before we say everything, thank you for everyone here who said nice things and on the call. And for residents, it's been really sweet having people email me, and one person did a handwritten note.
Now you're gonna
And-
get a flood of handwritten notes.
And it was all very sweet, and I appreciate that. And I know over the last 2.5 years, you know, everybody has been going through a lot, and with the pandemic and everything. And I started, as I've told people, I started March 16th, 2020. The shutdown was the Friday before, and I got a call from Tiffany, who was trying to figure out how my first day was going to go, you know, and how we were going to do this. And so it's been challenging, it's been, but also rewarding, everything from the events to all of you. So just from me and my family to all of you, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. Before we leave the committees, though, I wanted to recognize the tree supervisor, the village arborist, and Pepco.
Yes.
It's quite a holy trinity, for taking down a tree on Turner that some thought was perfectly fine, but was designated as a risk factor. It was taken down, and there was significant rot on the inside of this tree. And so I appreciate for everyone's safety on Turner, all the work that the tree supervisor, the village arborist, and Pepco in designating that tree ready to come down. So, okay. Finally, another opportunity for the council to hear from residents at a record-setting pace, 8:20. I don't want to jinx us, but please, Lynn.
I have a question with regard to Lori's talking about the ethics and volunteers, you know, everybody getting a training. Is a street captain considered a volunteer?
Is the what? The
Street
captain?
Street captain.
I don't know.
Well, they don't.
We don't appoint them.
Yeah, well, they don't undergo an oath of office or a conflict of interest questionnaire. So I think the question there, I think that's a question for the council to decide what it wants to do with, but traditionally they've been viewed not as volunteers in the official capacity sense. They are volunteers in the sense that they are supporting primarily the work of the Community Engagement Committee, but the village in a less formal capacity.
Right.
So that's sort of the distinction that is made.
And the village does not, I mean, the council does not appoint them. They come under the committee. They're adjuncts to the committee.
Yeah.
What
I
you're
guess
shaking your head.
the question might be for Ron to give us his feedback if he thinks this is something that should be considered, because they are in an ad hoc, sense part of the process. But I don't know, Ron, if you have any thoughts, or Lori, or anyone else.
If they're walking around delivering things,
Yeah.
if they are appointed by the council, then there's a
Well, they're not
different level of
appointed by the
protection.
council.
We have appointed them in the past.
We
At the council.
definitely have in the past, yes.
Street captain?
Well, I
Yes.
don't ever recall.
And,
Yeah.
and most of their support in recent years has truly been of the manager. You know,
Yes.
if the manager needs a welcome bag dropped off, or the manager were, before the COVID, and we were delivering flyers to homes, the
Yeah.
manager kind of worked with them directly to do
Do they
that.
have any authority or power at the street level that they can exercise and take advantage of?
They can't stop traffic.
Yeah. Ron, any thoughts?
Yeah, I wouldn't think that we'd have to make their positions more formal. Typically, charters are adopted for those committees that are serving in an advisory role to the council. And in that instance, it's helpful to have a charter setting forth the tasking, the rules for the committee, how they operate, how they must comply with Public Information Act and Open Meetings Act requirements. But folks that are serving more in a volunteer support capacity, either to staff or a committee, I don't see the need to create additional formalities.
Okay. Does that help, Lynn? I mean, I think it stays as is and probably wouldn't extend if that's Ron's recommendation.
Is there a charter currently, Niles, do you know?
There isn't really a formal sense of, I mean, it's sort of, there's a description of what a street captain does.
Where?
Which is primarily, I think it is on the community engagement page, but I'll double check if it is. All it basically says is that the street captains are there to do things like hand out welcome bags, hand out flyers. That
Does the community, oh, sorry,
yeah, extending the communication of the village is more than anything else, you know.
Okay.
does the engagement committee have an official charter in which the
Yes,
captains are referenced?
No.
I don't think it does reference it, but I'd have to check what it says.
Is that, yeah, I would just want to take a look at that to make sure
Sure.
my
Hmm?
I don't
my
think
thoughts
it
are
does.
consistent with what may have been decided in the past.
Yeah.
Okay.
But
Marty,
I'm asking her to unmute, so.
Okay, thank you. Good, quick meeting. I won't make it much longer. Question for Niles. Will,
Yes.
with the speed humps, the new signs that you're gonna put in place, and thank you for that.
Mhm.
And thank you for the speed humps, and near and dear to my heart. Will you also have signs that lower the speed limit? Because one thing I know is we can lower our speed limit to 15 miles an hour where we have speed bumps.
Right.
So will the new sign say 15 miles an hour?
So if you notice now on speed bumps, it has a little sign under it that says 10 miles an hour, which is what you do over the speed limit. So
Right.
those will be there on all of them, right? It will say that the speed limit for it will have the triangle sign and the little square sign. It will say 10 miles an hour. So
Okay.
when you're going over it, you know, that's the intent of that sign. It is not, just to be clear, it is not a speed limit sign. It is not something
It's an
that you can
advisory.
enforce.
It's an
telling
advisory.
people, if you really don't want to damage your car, go 10 miles per hour over the speed hump. So it's a slightly different version of speed.
Thank you for that clarification. That's what I thought too.
Mhm.
So that brings me to a council question, which is, can we in fact, under county regs, I believe we can, lower the speed limits to 50 miles an hour on streets that do have speed bumps in general? Is that doable, or do we want to consider it?
So that is we've looked into this before, I think, and Ron might jump in here. But
Sure.
it's a county rule, the speed limit rule. So go ahead, Ron.
Yeah, so there is a process in state law governing how municipalities can lower the speed limit. It's basically, state law sets the speed limit, and it can be lowered by a municipality, but only upon the recommendations of a engineered traffic study. So we would have to get a traffic study that would give us a recommendation as to, you know, whether the speed limit needs to be lowered, and then we can. I don't recall off the top of my head what the parameters for. I vaguely recall that there's a limit how far you go. You can't, for example, set a speed limit of 2.
Right.
I don't remember if it's 15 or 10 or 20. I'll look that up right now.
I think, from my recollection from our earlier conversation, is that the speed limit of 20 miles an hour, which is what our roads are, is the lowest that under the state standards it can be, with the exception, like, again, of certain things that you can do, like exit and entrance zones and things like that. But that's sort of my recollection.
Okay, that is what Joe Kutro has said in the past.
Yeah.
However, and I don't know what the status of this bill is, there has been a bill in Montgomery County where
Correct.
they are trying to lower the minimum speed limit to 15 miles an hour, which I don't know if that would have an impact on our ability to do it. I haven't followed
Right.
it since
So
walkability, so.
I can tell you that it hasn't gone anywhere yet.
Okay, yeah.
What I understand from that bill is that it's basically lowering that threshold,
Right.
right? So it's saying that the lowest any street can be is 15 miles an hour.
Exactly.
And then that is based on, because there's also this whole completely other thing that the state is considering, which is changing all the standards. So that basically it can be lower in different times, but did you find it, Ron? Did you find what it said?
I'm still looking.
Okay.
Yeah, it's Transportation Article 21803. But I need to read that real quick. It looks
Okay.
like in a school zone,
Yeah.
you can reduce to 15 without a traffic study.
Yeah.
But outside a school zone, you need the engineering and traffic investigation. And it looks like well, let me keep reading.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Okay.
All right, well, good point, Marty. I think we've talked about this before.
Yeah.
Frustrating to me, as it is to you, that 20 seems not very fast, but boy, it is. So, anything else, Marty?
Yes, a couple other quick things. We were back when we were talking about the CEC things, and the events and stuff. I would like to ask us to consider, the CEC, I guess, is a place to start, but I'd like the council to think about it. Doing some of the other, kind of community events that are more, pragmatically oriented, like a shredding event, which I know now that you're working on, and I assume that your predecessor will be able to implement what you've got in the gears and going. But I'd also like, you know, town of Cherry Chase, or this township, is doing a light bulb thing exchange with people can turn in their light bulbs. Because I've got a bag of light bulbs in the basement that I can't get out to the dump to distribute, that can't go in regular trash. And batteries, right? Sort of a way to do, you know, shredding batteries and light bulbs all at once would be a really good service. I'm sure I'm not the only person who has those to get rid of. And we don't want them dropped in the trash, because then they end up in the landfill, and that's not good.
Right.
Batteries for sure. Stroh-Snyder's used to take them.
Yeah, I found it.
Hang on one second, Ron. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I found it. As Marty said, that you can reduce to 15 with a engineering and traffic investigation.
Okay.
So maybe
15
we
is
need
low.
someone other than Joe Kutro, who might
Well,
be the point of that.
I mean, I think the question there is just, I think the bigger question, and maybe this is a question that will require more research, is you can do a study, and you
Right.
can, but the question is, what is the study,
Well,
what are the parameters under which the study tells us what we
will
need to
the,
know?
will the study justify 15?
Right.
The study might
Yeah.
justify
So we
25.
want that study, yeah, right.
Yeah.
How do we get that study to answer
make sure.
the, yeah,
Ethically, Andrew,
Yeah.
ethically, right.
Get in the
To
ethics.
come up with
And
the
as
answer we want.
I
I've
think we
heard
already
Joe
have that
Kutro say many
information.
times in traffic studies, there's a general engineering principle, and I may not have the percentages exactly right, but if 80% or so of
85.
drivers feel safe driving a certain speed, then that's an appropriate speed, because human nature
Yeah.
dictates how fast you drive based on the narrowness of the road, location of cars, etc. And so
So,
Sometimes
I'm sorry, if the drivers
you're
feel comfortable,
surprised.
not the pedestrians?
No, more, no, well, yes and no. So this is a whole different, bigger thing that we don't have time for, but
Yeah.
essentially what he means is, so say if the speed limit is 20, and 85% of the people on the road are going within 5 miles of 20 miles an hour, by most of the standards of how traffic studies work, then the speed limit, it should be 20 miles an hour,
Yeah.
right? It's the question of how fast people are going versus how fast they can go.
Yeah.
And that's
Okay.
one of those things.
Got it.
But there's more to that.
Got it. Marty, anything else?
Nope, that's it. Can we follow up on the shredding and the
Yeah.
light bulbs
Great.
and the batteries,
Mhm.
please?
Thank you.
Another question.
All right, Lynn, last resident comment / question.
Question
Oh,
regarding
second last.
Quincy Street, the dead end part, there was a discussion some while back. A resident had made the suggestion that it could be widened on the, I guess, the south side. And, what is the status of that?
So-
And is there a 50% or less than 50% chance of that actually happening?
I won't speak in percentages of whether it will happen or not, but what we have done is Joe has looked at the street and looked at it. So there's the main question of widening it is how much do you widen it and in what way do you widen it, right? So Joe is going to submit a plan that basically says if we are to widen it, this is what we would do. The biggest thing is that it would probably take out most of the grass and trees there, and so there's a question as to. And I think this is a question that the council and the community will want, and the community on Quincy Street will want, is whether that's worth it to them or not. I mean, there's two, just to go into this a little bit, because not everybody here will know what we're talking about. The question is, the street is designed to be wide enough so that there could be parking on both sides under under the traffic law. However, it is not what the fire department and other and EMS would like it to be. They would like it to be wider than it is and still have parking on both sides. So the question for the council, the question that I've had Joe investigate is whether because most of the residents want to keep the parking on the other side of the street. So the question is, if we are to fix this sort of incongruence, for lack of a better term, is either getting rid of the parking or widening it. If we try to widen it, what do we lose? And so I'm trying to get an accurate understanding of what we might lose so that that decision can be made. So that's sort of where it stands right now.
Well, my understanding was that if it was widened, it would be widened only on the south side of the street. Because on the north side, it's not too practical.
Correct, but the question even there is, so rather than just say generally, okay, we'll widen the south side, the specific question is, can we do it, and how many trees would we lose, how much of the grass would we lose, and how much would that be? Because there's all the standards that go into the curb and the sidewalk and all those things that have to be taken into consideration. So.
All right. Well,
thank you. Last one, Tiffany.
So I had corresponded with the council in July about, instead of starting to donate village tax dollars to nonprofits, I encourage the council to take a look at what Section 5 does. And when they have a surplus, the council votes on it annually. And last year, they gave a $700 tax credit to every residence in Section 5. I did some math, Martin's Additions, surplus from last year, even if we kept all of the reserves as they currently are, added about another $100,000 to our reserves, we could have given about a $1,200 tax credit to every residence in Martin's Additions. I think that that is less fraught with divisive peril way for the council to move forward, lest anyone raise questions about the legality of doing such a thing. The Section 5 manager clarified that their funds are from their tax revenues, all tax revenues, not just their property tax revenues, and that I would look at our budget and say, if we're spending $35,000, possibly more, on community engagement events, we don't distinguish where the pool of money comes from here in Martin's Additions. So I encourage the council to see the money come in, and then, if residents want to use $1,200, is $600 to Chevy Chase at Home if you need help with your membership and help with a water heater, or maybe your front steps needs to be fixed. It's more than the $50 originally reported.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did deep consideration of your suggestion and raised it with our council, who suggested that it may not be legal to do that, and that what Section 5 is doing is questionable. But Ron, you might want to, there you are, you might want to elaborate on that.
Yep.
You can.
Yep,
Just unmuting, sorry.
Okay, there you go.
Finger got stuck there. Yeah, so Section 5 is a client of mine as well.
And how many years have they been doing this without legal challenge, council?
Many years.
Many years.
Many years. I mean, longer than I've represented them.
Yes, in the public, voting publicly to do it.
Yeah, so I've given my confidential legal advice to the council, and I don't know that I can say any more on the record.
Well, here's my suggestion. Ron, as a refresher, do you mind providing your confidential advice to us, to the council, after this meeting at some point?
Yeah,
I sent it previously, but I can resend
Oh,
you that.
resend it. Okay, so no additional 6-minute increment charges from you, Ron. We have it already. He's gonna
no
resend
charges
it.
if Niles forwards it.
Based on that, I think it might be worth, if there's agreement among the council, I'd like to direct Tiffany to provide wording that could be used and approved by the council to be put into the survey as a question to residents. I don't know if that's
because if there's legal, if it's legally
if it's
questionable.
Sound, but no, if it's not, I'm saying only if it's legally sound.
If it's legally sound, next year we'll try it, I'd say. Because until we get a legal.
Well, again, respectfully define legally sound. Section 5 has been doing this for years.
Yeah.
They take a vote, the council takes a vote in a public meeting. It is
in their
recorded
minutes.
in their newsletter. It is in their minutes. It took less than 5 minutes of me searching on their website
To find
the information.
Right.
So you know, council provides counsel and the village council decides, you know, what to do with it. I would ask perhaps if the counsel that you receive doesn't address the distinction of revenues coming in and being spent for the public benefit on parties, gatherings, revenues coming in and being spent for the public benefit on tax credits. I think that's it's a piece of information that might be helpful.
Okay. I've had this conversation before. I like the idea. I'm generally supportive of the idea. Absolutely. I think it'll help a lot of residents. And given this fantastic financial report we got from our treasurer and we seem to get every month, I think it's something we should look at. And so if you can re-forward and we'll take a look and have a conversation with Ron.
I can't remember his name. John from Section 5, he's a lawyer. He was the manager. He was the chair for a while. I can't remember his last name. His wife was manager.
John and Francis Higgins.
John Higgins. He has taught municipal law, and I think you might want to check into this. He may have come up with the rationale for why they could do it. When I've talked to him personally, he promoted the idea. I think without knowing specifically, he may have been the source of the idea and the support for it, the legal support for it. So you might want to just give him chat with him to see what he might say.
Maybe we should.
Or we should. We could. Yeah.
Okay.
I just wanted to ask, I mean, it's interesting that this council's being put to the task. Have previous councils discussed this give back?
Yes, I'll speak for myself, Katie. You know, in the past, I will say I deferred to our treasurer for many years. And this year I did my own legwork.
She did.
I appreciate it. No, it's great.
Found some additional
thank you.
information.
Okay.
We're all in your debt.
That's right, $1,200.
Literally.
The last, I would just offer, if there is any discussion about improvements to the park with funds, perhaps the simple thing of not solving all the drainage issues, but a water fountain, which has been discussed for many years.
That's Monty's main point.
Yeah.
Well, and I will say I was in the upper peninsula of Michigan in the middle of nowhere, and there was a water fountain with a water bottle filler there.
Yeah.
So we should be able to do this in Chevy Chase, Maryland.
Yeah.
Is VMA? Let's end it on this. Is the VMA the property that splits us from the county? Is that where the asphalt ends and the grassy area starts?
No, it's technically that dead end, that little dead end.
So the whole dead end is already county property?
Is county property. Now there's, not to get into.
Maybe on Keith's property.
I can show you one, I'll show you exactly where the line of demarcation
But
is.
it's right there. It's also a little bit more confusing because that end cul-de-sac and the park have different jurisdictions.
Yes. Ron was about to say something.
Oh, Ron, sorry, go ahead, Ron.
Right there on the map. You can see it on that map on the wall.
Yeah.
Ron?
Were you gonna say something, Ron?
Oh no, I was reading my research and I didn't mean to raise my hand.
Okay.
No, you're good, Ron. Waving your hands when you're talking to yourself.
Would someone like to move to adjourn?
I'd like to adjourn.
All right, do a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye. Two hands.
Katie voted aye, just.
Yeah, we got it. The second was Arthur, just for all note-taking purposes. Thank you, everyone, for joining this evening.
Thank you.
I regret that Closeville didn't more seriously consider my negative recommendation.
So do we.
I tried to dissuade them, but I wasn't persuasive.
Ron did his
best.
Monty took us.
I regret meeting some of the council members at the Maryland Municipal League conference. I missed the happy hour, and I'm wondering if that's when Niles proposed. So I have a bone to pick with them. They're very nice.
He brought his resume to
Friendly
that event.
Okay.
All right, thank you, guys.
Thank you. All right.
Hello.
All right.
Hey, Monty took up a collection on that because,
I know,
we
I
contributed
noticed.
that and then I guess he gave the money back. I don't remember, what did he do?
Isn't
Oh,
the
he-
Gave it to
infrastructure
the
there?
National Park, or not the
Yeah.
Montgomery
So is that
County
was
Parks
it possible?
.org.
I
They're
couldn't
not
figure
profit.
out what
Because the
the
county
Friday
told them
meant.
it was gonna cost, Niles wrong.
Okay, so
The county told
tomorrow,
them it was gonna
Now,
cost
if you
them
want the weather report,
$250,000.
what's the deadline? Tomorrow, okay.
Put in a watermelon.
Very good.
and I'm on the hill in the
All right,
morning.
Okay.
So I have relative flexibility, like early, so thank you, Keith, early to
I'm
mid-afternoon
sure.
tomorrow. So if you wanna check on that,
They're absolutely,
yeah, you got it really.
Yeah,
good.
all.